Good morning, Stephan.
Good morning, Jamie.
How are you?
I'm I'm doing pretty well. I'm just been blissfully absorbed in my morning playlist.
That's great. That's awesome. What a great way to start the day.
I just got up. I got up. I turned the stereo. Well, we don't call it the stereo anymore, but Bluetooth to the Sonos speakers. Open the curtains and then climb back on bed and watch the fog roll over the buildings and
Oh, that's beautiful.
listen to the band and ZZ Top and Leonard Skinnard and Molly Hatchet and Little Feat.
All right.
got
Songs from days of yore.
got the full 70s road trip going.
Oh, that's great. No, that's so awesome. What a nice way to start a day. That sounds really beautiful.
Yeah, I like ending the day like that too. I'll
Yeah.
just put I'll just put the music on and then set a timer. I wish one of the features I'd like for the iPhone timer is I'd like for the iPhone timer to be able to fade the music out.
Yeah, that's
It
actually a
would
great you should put that request in.
put that in uh, because that would make it easier to fall asleep to music,
Yeah.
right? It would
Yep,
just
it just
fade out.
drift off. Yep.
Yeah.
Not a hard
So
stop. No, that's really cool. I like that.
yeah. So
Good energy.
it's-
Oh, that's really good. Man. Well, how has your week been?
wow, very eventful.
Yeah.
Filled
Yeah.
with filled with excitement, betrayal. Um
Like an episode of The Guiding Light. These are the days of
Days
our
of our lives.
lives.
General Hospital. Yep. It's like an episode of General Hospital.
Well,
Um,
tell me more.
well, I can't tell you, I can't tell a lot in details.
I understand that.
I can't tell a lot in details, but the bottom line is somebody did something, someone who we really like did something that broke their responsibility to
Mm,
their profession,
wow.
to the company that they work with, to their profession, and to their friends.
Oh, that's heartbreaking when that happens. And I have
And
to
it's just
say, I've
it's
been through
just
that.
dumb.
Yeah.
It was just dumb. Something really dumb, petty, small. But the way the person dealt with this dumb, petty, and small incident, they didn't see it. They didn't think it was wrong. They lied to cover it up.
Oh, which just makes it worse. This is like having children.
Yeah, no, this is the equivalent of catching a 6-year-old with the hand in the cookie jar
Hmm.
and 5 minutes later, like, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
I
No,
didn't do
I didn't do
that.
it.
I didn't do
Crumbs on
that.
their face.
It was okay. You told me I could have a cookie.
3 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 days ago. Exactly.
Yeah.
No,
One
that's it.
cookie 3 days ago. It's a new day, new time. You have crumbs. I know what happened here. That's, yeah. It's heartbreaking though, because the trust element, right? Like the trust, the friendship,
Well,
like,
and this is somebody I expected to have spend a lot of my energy with, spend more future time with, to enjoy. Um, and so um, it was an opportunity, um, and it's still so close, and it's still not resolved. So we I can't really talk about any of it in much detail. But
yeah.
the point is that it gets those of us involved to focus on, well, what do we really want and need right now out of
Yeah.
this, and how can we be kind and thoughtful and actually be conscious of what everyone in this situation needs,
Yeah.
what they're wanting, and what this behavior is calling out, right? Because there's no use in punishing or trying to change it, or it happened.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, well, how do we move forward?
Yeah. Cause
How do
yeah,
we move forward? Because
it's
there's no fixing this. There's no going backwards,
yep.
because we have to move forward. We have an imperative to move forward
Yeah.
now.
And that's,
And so but I think the biggest thing is feeling the betrayal at a number of different levels of, and it's not betrayal of me directly. I could take it personally,
sure.
but it's just the sadness of like, wow, I had higher expectations of this person.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that this person could grow with us as we grow professionally, as we grow as an organization, as we, right.
Yeah. But
And
then,
grow
yeah.
as a friend. But now it's like, well, my loyalty is to those of us who are functioning above board, right?
Yeah.
Like those in the company who are functioning at a high level and wanting to grow personally, professionally, and as an enterprise. And you just revealed which direction you want to go in.
That's painful. It's just, I
Yeah.
mean, I really, I can relate on that. I've been in some really interesting situations where you just think like, really? Like this could be so good without, ego or greed and I don't know
Yes.
the context specifically. I have a general, context,
Yeah.
but
Well, we can talk about it off the air
yeah,
as professionals, but
but
it's
yeah,
it's not appropriate to go into any detail. The bottom line is it's how do you deal with this obvious betrayal in any business situation? And then how do you move on as quickly as possible, right? And without judgment,
yeah,
without judgment, without wanting retribution,
sure.
but to move forward as quickly as possible, because we have so many positive things that we need and want to
Exactly.
focus on.
This actually, there's the context of the business life, but there's also, I relate to this in a lot of what my daughter Zia, and I have been through. She's we're on the cusp of 14. We'll be 14. She'll be 14 in 2 weeks. And I have to say, like, with this one, the trust has been broken, right? Like just over and over and over. And like, for me, like the consequences of doing something wrong, I had to move those over and focus on, I just need you to be honest with me if I ask you a question. So, okay. So like, I guess where I'm relating this to this context with Zia is that the trust is, I've been lied to, but then, the truth always is pretty clear. And so like, we have to learn to move forward, right? Like we can't go change what was done. We can't undo what has been done. But like, I love and care for this person, right? Like I need to be able to extend trust, but when it's been broken and broken and broken. And then like one of our more recent incidents, here was a funny one. I picked her up from the school bus and I looked at her and I said, "Are you high?" And she said, "Yes." Like there was kind of a long pause. And I was in this moment of being kind of torn, right? Like I said this to her. I said, "I am jubilant about your honesty." I am disappointed about your decision, but let's focus on the honesty of telling the truth in the moment, because historically that has been our bigger problem.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm like really excited about the progress of truth and honesty in the moment, not later. And so I want to celebrate that. And I want to like put focus on that, not the focus on the wrongdoing, even though the wrongdoing is still an issue here. Like, oh, I was so torn. But like, I feel like I relate in a lot of what you're saying. It's like, you can't change what has been done. You can only move from where you are right now and move forward. And
Yes.
how to do that constructively is, that's the question. And how do we navigate this in a way that's healthy and constructive? And, this person I am imagining in your story is very aware of the wrongdoing now. I mean, may have been all along the way, but like,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
apologetic.
Only after the only after a confrontation
Yeah,
of,
like having been caught.
the fact of what, yes, exactly. I think the thing, I mean, I love this example with your daughter because that's a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right.
It
It's a
is for
breakthrough.
us.
Yeah. No,
It
it's easy to see what a great, what a breakthrough that is. The trick is to not take it personally, right? The
right.
lying
Yep.
or the bad behavior. The trick is it is not a it's not something that's designed to make you feel bad.
Right.
It is the behavior is something that's designed to fill a need or an emptiness or a place that is lacking in that person who's broken our trust, right? It's like,
exactly, like
right,
nail on the head. Exactly. And
right.
yet trying to surface what that thing is can be like a mystery, right? Like I feel like Scooby-Doo here, like it's just like a mystery to unravel. Like what is it we're trying to fill? What's the void? Like
Yeah, well, I mean, for kids who are 14,
belonging. Yep.
school sucks.
Acceptance.
The
Yep.
world is very judgmental. And for females especially, everybody's so perfect, right? Everybody's projecting this perfection. I'm not perfect.
Right. And then the
There's so many
acceptance factor is a big one.
so many, yeah, there's so many unrealistic and fabricated expectations, illusion. There are so many illusions that are projected upon me, right?
Yeah.
And so how do I temper that? Well, one way to temper it is to get high. One way to temper it is to drink. One way to temper it is go rock climbing.
Right. And that's really it, is trying to find more productive outlets. And
yes.
And that's
and ways to build esteem, right? If you build esteem, you don't care what other people think.
and that's what I think what I struggle with, I think, is like remembering what it's like to be 13, but also like in a different world. Like this is a different 13 than the 13 I grew up with. And even though I had my own struggles and acceptance and belonging, I was awkward and weird and got made fun of. And I had at 13, I had lost my brother, and people kind of like kept their distance with me because I had lost someone, because there was a death. And so it was like, there were people who were close to me, but then a lot of people didn't know how to interact with me. And I didn't know how to interact with people, I think, a little bit. But, it's just so, I just have such a different relatability. And I didn't have social media, and I didn't go to a school. Like she goes to, it's an art school, but it's a very urban based arts school, right? And there's a lot there's a lot of different stuff. Then I grew up in, on the contrast, very rural Nevada, right? And she's grown up in a very urban school with a lot of people. And, my graduating class was 38, and she has, like at least that per class, I would say. It's just, it's a very different world than mine. And I'm trying to be understanding and learn as I go as well, right? And try to say like, okay, well, sure, it's not the worst thing that could happen. You like getting high, getting stoned with marijuana. No, it's not the worst thing, but it is illegal for you at 13. Like it's not legal. Like, yes, it's legal in Nevada. That doesn't mean that it is legal for you to do in the bathroom at school.
Yeah.
So, there's just we have some gaps to fill, and it's just, yeah, trying to navigate those it's an ongoing challenge. It has been an ongoing challenge, and
Yeah.
yet we made some
Well,
huge progress, right? And
well, I remember at that age that everyone who was in the Boy Scouts I had two very contrasting worlds at that age in high school. My first 2 years of high school were in New York, where I grew up in a very suburban environment in a high school that had 3,000 plus students in it. And so there were all kinds of places where you could go and fit in and find a peer group and
yeah,
or get into trouble. And then later on, after my sophomore year, my family moved to rural Washington. So I had a similar situation.
yeah,
It's a small logging town. There was one black family in town. That was the extent of ethnic diversity. There were
yeah,
no
wow,
Hispanic people. There was no other ethnicity other than white rural Washingtonians, and
yeah,
most of them were in the logging. Many of them were in the logging industry, or families that were part of the local economy, the local mercantile store, the local gas stations, the local doctor. They all had, all their kids were in the school, and there were maybe 90 kids in my entire graduating class. And that environment was just filled with it was just dangerous. People were like shooting guns out behind the school. There were like
yeah, yeah.
dead crows showing up in our
Oh
lockers.
my gosh. I don't think we had that, but we definitely had, that was like a common pastime, was like, I hate even saying it, but some of the local boys would go out in their trucks and they did bunny bashing, which was, I just think, horrible. But like, just that was like a small town pastime, and it's just so weird. Like, yeah, but that's what,
Yeah,
yeah, I grew up around that. Lots of shooting.
kids came to school with rifles in the back of their pickups.
Yeah, like that was
It was
certainly not
that
something.
that no,
We
it was
never had a
normal.
school shooting or anything, I mean, it was
No,
just, this is how we grew up, right? Like, yeah, exactly.
yes,
That very rural sort of upbringing. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I grew up, speaking of guns, I grew up with a ex-military Marine who
yeah.
loved guns, but also respected proper usage
Well,
of guns. But
Well,
yeah.
we had all of that. We had my dad also ex-Marine. He was on the
Yeah.
Marine Corps pistol team. He was a national champ. There were lots of guns in the house.
Yeah. Yep.
There's even a bullet there. Well, the door doesn't exist anymore, but there was in college. There was a bullet hole right through the middle of the front door
Wow.
because my dad happened to be showing off his
Oh,
guns in the house.
oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
didn't check to see if there was a round in the chamber of his service
Wow.
45.
I don't think we ever had a weapon go off in the house, but I can tell you stories of some of the weapons I discovered in the house. So, yeah,
Yeah.
oh man.
Well,
I was like, Dad, what's this? I found something during hide and seek. I was like, Dad, what is that up there? Like I pointed to where he kept it. And I was like, what is that? He's like, oh, that's a Laws rocket. I was like, oh, yeah. that was growing up in my
Yeah.
house. Found that
Well,
during hide and seek, right? Like, yeah.
we didn't have a Laws rocket, but we did have armor piercing rounds.
Yeah.
We had armor piercing rounds
Oh,
in the attic
oh my gosh.
in bandoleros. Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so, and it's like, I don't mean to make light of it, like, especially given a lot of the world situations with guns and all of that, but like that was our reality, right? That's the reality that we grew up with, and that was normal for us. Like even that was always, even at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like what did I just find? It was not a normal household for sure,
Yeah.
but
Yet,
yeah,
yet
this was normal.
yes. And though I know my dad would have never marched on Washington.
Yeah, same. My dad
Right.
wouldn't have either.
My
Yeah,
dad would have
ever.
never done that.
Mm-mm.
Right. He didn't, he would have known that was stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I feel like
But
that as well. And yeah.
but I think the point I started at when I got into this long rambling, I think what I started at is even at 13, growing up in New York, where there were lots of activities and lots of um, things to do. My schoolmates, we were in the Boy Scouts, and a lot of kids, when we were in the Boy Scouts, the reason you would go to the Boy Scouts is because you could just get out in the wilderness
Yeah.
and everybody'd set up their tents. And then half of the guys would just be smoking dope every night
That's so funny.
and getting high. And, the weed wasn't nearly as good as it is now. But people still did it and I think that's just part of the teenage brain, right? It's like to try stuff, to get away, to escape impending adulthood, right? Like the pressure of becoming an adult and impending adulthood. And one of the things that's missing from our society is there's no indoctrination. There's no formal indoctrination into becoming an adult. No
Sure.
ritual, no circle where you sit with the men or the women or your aunties or your uncles and you get sent out on a mission and then they welcome you into the tribe. This ritual, this indoctrination into being an adult is gone. So
That's
kids don't
interesting. Yeah.
kids don't have a clear path to know when they've made it or whether they're on the good. They want to know who they are. They want to know how they fit in. But it's increasingly hard to fit in because a lot of the constructs, a lot of the frameworks that are set up for children are fabrications. They are illusions, right? Instagram, just an incredible illusion about what real life is like. Yet TikTok, incredible illusion about what real life is like,
Sure.
except children are spending all of their time there imagining, well, and adults, let's face it, with TikTok and Instagram, spending all of their time there and not understanding that that is a fantasy.
Sure.
And it's not achievable in real life.
Well,
right?
even most of it, yeah, it's like you have to create, yeah,
right? Like most of it, like the abs are not achievable. The butt is not achievable. The skin tone is not achievable, right? Like we are blemished, flawed, flabby, in mediocre shape individuals, in general, as a whole. And as we get older, it's even harder to maintain that. And so children do not have a realistic idea of how to become themselves.
Yeah.
There's no path for indoctrination. There's no ritual. There's no tribe saying, welcome, you're now part of the tribe, that you belong here. We welcome you. We love you. You're surrounded by people who accept you exactly as you are, instead of being surrounded by
Judgment.
an Instagram world of like, oh, well, I'm on this new keto diet so that I can get the abs I want for summer bathing suit season.
Empty.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, we would go to the beach in Denmark and everyone was nude and didn't care what they're like. The grandparents were nude, the
Yeah.
children were nude, the adults were nude, and they were just running in the beach and nobody cared about what their bodies looked like. They were just happy to be at the beach.
Yeah.
And that would never happen in modern American society
Definitely not here. Yeah.
because there's too much fear around body image, there's too much fear about sex, there's too much, all of these things are forbidden. And so again, that's just a lot of babble, and the bottom line is that children do not have a tribally sanctioned path to be welcomed into the adult world.
That is interesting. I hadn't really thought about that.
And so how do we do that? How do we set that example? How do we put them around our friends? And like with my daughter, as much as possible, I tried to encourage her to meet and hang out with my female friends
Yeah.
who I thought were super interesting, super maybe even fringy, but women who kind of did it on their own,
Exactly.
right? Like hang out with your Aunt Tina, hang out with your Aunt Carrie. And none of these people were blood relatives, but
Sure.
they're good enough, like check out your Aunt Carrie to see how she's done her life and she's done her life, and hang out.
Yeah.
Go have lunch, to be around the vibe so you get the feeling of how this adult is in their life and how this adult doesn't have any expectation of you. That's the other thing, is they are around so many adults that have expectations of them. And at any given moment, those expectations might be completely unrealistic or just terrifying.
Yeah. Or boring. I mean, like the structure of
Or,
school is 8 hours of low grade clerical work, it's
yes,
like
yes,
really like, and they're bored and they're like,
it's mind numbing. So why
yeah,
not just give in and numb my mind?
exactly. And that's, that is another piece of it for me that is hard to relate to, is that I guess maybe because of how I was raised and losing my brother. So my brother definitely, experimented with drugs, and he was, drunk, drinking, and he died in a drunk driving accident. He was not the driver, he was the passenger, but he and his friend were leaving a party and rolled the car. And, so like that context of my life, I was 11 when that happened. He was 15. And I think like my parents really like kind of buckled down on my sister and I, like in terms of like protection, right? Like protecting us, guarding us from
Mhm.
the outside, but also in coping with challenges that life brings, how to deal with loss, how to deal with peer pressure, how to deal with the like that became the focus of how I grew up. And still to this day, I've never tried pot, never. And so I can't relate to using that as a tool to cope. And so I try, but I don't have that experience, right? And my experience is like mental toughness is how I was raised to deal with stuff. And so like that's what I know. And I'm trying to be understanding and open. And also I learned so much by being a parent. I've learned so much from my own kids on how they navigate things, that my two girls are very different from each other as well. Like, my older one, she found her peer group in between second and third grade. She's had the same three, there's four of them, same three friends since third grade. and they're seniors now in high school. And, it's like they're good kids. They like reading and hiking. And, I mean, it's just that there's just and coping with things. We've never had a drug problem, but we have honesty and open communication. And I truly do believe that. I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, every parent thinks that, but I know the reality with my other one, it's different. It's just they're different kids, different personalities, different challenges, and they handle things differently. And so me trying to like navigate this other one that I don't quite relate to is harder for sure. But I want to be equally there, equally present, and equally understanding, despite those differences. And and then I'm not comparing them either to each other. Like, this one doesn't do this, why do you? I would never do that, because I know we're different. I'm so different from my sister, and I was different than my older brother. I understand that we're different individuals. It's not one size fits all. It just doesn't work that way. But yeah, really trying to like navigate and adjust and figure it out. Like, okay, we're resetting again, 2 weeks later, we're resetting again. Here we are. But progress has been made in my mind, huge progress, for honesty, right?
Well, I mean, that is huge progress, because it's like, if she's willing to tell you that, then maybe there's a deeper conversation of like, well, how does it feel? I mean, like,
We've definitely had that.
What is going on at school, and frankly, like, if you took her into the medical system, the medical system might prescribe something that's even worse.
Yeah,
even worse, right? Even worse than pot.
Yeah. And that's like an even bigger fear for me. And I was, again, also raised that way. My dad, PTSD, Vietnam veteran, hated, the medication. Like, he was often given medication. He would do it for a little while and then leave it because he hated how it made him feel. And so I was raised with like, you don't need medication. I mean, I barely, took things for headaches, like Advil or Tylenol. Like, I barely, as I got older, the pains became more than Advil and whatnot. But that's about it for me on pain.
Yeah. Well, I don't even have those in my house.
Yeah, that's
smart.
Not
I mean, I don't know if it's smart or not, but whatever it is, I've always preferred being like, when I'm down, to be sober, right? To actually have all my faculties, to be able to feel whatever's going on, and to be aware. I don't like being not aware. And
that's something that I've always liked too, is, so again, like, kind of a non-drinker until I was 38 years old. I was a non-drinker, and at 38 went through a divorce, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to just have a beer. And then beer doesn't really agree with me. So I was like, I'll just learn how to have a drink once in a while. And so I'm kind of a 2 or 3 drinks. Sometimes if I'm home with just Ken and the girls are at their dad's, I'll have a few more or whatever. And I do let them see me drink, because I want to be an example of drinking responsibly. And not, and I do it for relaxation, but it's not a requirement by any means. But yes, that awareness. As a college student, I was a very reliable, I think we've talked about this before, it's just
the designated driver.
Very reliable designated driver. And it was always fascinating to me to watch my friends just kind of, everybody seemed like such a fool.
People turn into idiots.
I mean, some people are, you really get to see the true nature of people, though, in that, like, I feel like you really learned who you wanted to spend more time with and who you wanted to spend less time with by watching how they behave in those situations. And I think that was always a fascinating sort of social experiment for me. It's just like going out with my friends to art openings, and afterward there'd always be, the after parties or whatever, and I'd always go, but I never partook. Like, I'll have a Pepsi, and just pass the drugs by, and I was like, I'm good.
I had a roommate, my first assigned roommate in college, in the dorm. was a cocaine dealer. So cocaine became instantly unattractive to me
Yeah, I
because
get it.
this person was such an unsavory individual. And then I had so many people around me who were pot smokers and
Yeah.
dealers and and I would always be at the party, but I never really enjoyed where everybody went when they were stoned or when they were really drunk. And so I would drink beer at my own pace. I would never play the drinking games because for me it was like I was just a phenomenologist watching all of this stuff go
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
To me it was a one big science experiment.
That is,
And
I relate to that. Yeah. I was just observing,
it's like,
observing.
what is like really you're that idiot?
Yeah. Yeah. I had so many of those, man. But
Yeah.
this is it, right? Like going back to like these, okay, so experiences that we've had that, inform how we deal with these situations, but always, in the spirit of our unconstrained conversation, always trying to do better and always trying to like approach things with a fresh perspective and for me, an optimistic and open perspective. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I was trying to do better. I don't know that I cared about what better was
then
at a
or
certain,
now.
well, maybe even now, and might be part of the exploration we're doing here, is what I cared about. It wasn't necessarily doing better. It was doing what I felt was right, doing what respected my boundaries.
Here's a question that raises is
Like I didn't
doing,
feel I was better.
sure.
I just didn't like what was going on. And so I did what I did to get what I liked out of the experience, whether it
Okay.
was at the party or, and there were, believe me, there were plenty of times where I was drunk and silly and but it was around people who I enjoyed and in situations that were, for the most part, safe. And so, in a way, I was always being selfish to some extent of just like, what do I want out of this? And then if you drink too much, then I kind of lose the ability to, um, I guess, to be aware of what I was wanting, right? Then it was
Right.
just like, whatever, woohoo, yeah,
Right.
let's drive to Moscow, Idaho. Yeah, let's go.
I
Let's
had to
get some.
make notes so I didn't forget, but because I want to go back to kind of like what, okay, first, like when I say better, I'm not thinking better than the other person. I'm thinking better than I was before. And
The,
so like
even even
self-improvement.
that even that not like self-improvement was not part of my, that like thinking about self-improvement,
Uh-huh.
that was too much. That's too much pressure for me. I was just trying to be myself, right?
Well,
Like that.
okay. So, but that's the thing, like, okay, so that, and for me, when again, self-improvement, I feel like it implies like I'm constantly at work to be better than I was before. But I think by sheer practice of trying to be you, there's a certain sense of progress or a certain sense of, I think I address situations now better than I would have addressed this situation 6 months ago. And better
Yes.
might be a relative or arbitrary term, but there's, like, even if I'm the only one measuring that, I think I handle these situations with Z better now than I did even a year
Yes.
ago, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my context of the word better. But then there's that, like, saying like, I'm trying, you want to serve what is best for you, and to truly allow yourself to be you, and nothing more or less, but truly exist in all your glory. But then we're with other people who maybe have the same goal, but their goal is not aligned with our goal, right? And so like when that person, say it's just one person, their me-ness, the I am being me in all my glory, and this is what I choose, these are the decisions that I make, and those are not aligned with my idea of my me and my best and the who I want to be. And so there's always this sort of dance, at least, you know, in the context of me and Z. And the dance that I've been doing with her for a very long time is like all noise aside, honesty is really important, because I really need to be able to trust you. As a parent, every day I let you go to school with your phone because I need you to have a phone in case something goes wrong, right? Like I need to be able to trust you with a device that, and the phone is like a years past problem. That's not a problem, right? Like taking the phone away, that was a many years ago. We've moved on from that. But like now it's you know, a drug problem. So, and I say a drug problem, it's pot. And you know, we've been able to have conversations, but she's 13, and I know that that's not good for your brain at 13, but getting her to understand that anyway. Like kind of going back to like, if this is her being who she is in the best way she knows how, and this is me being at my best, being the most me I know how to be, but they're not aligned. These are different versions. And so we're addressing situations in those contexts always, right? With different people who have different ideas of where they're at and what they want out of a situation or a, you know, a business or whatever. And so it's figuring out how to work with what you have from this moment and move it toward what works with your values, with what you want the situation to be, right? At least that's how I navigate things. I'm like, well, I'm gonna put this out there because, and I'll jump gears for a moment to talk work for a second. I started a project last year, as you know. I love this project. Like I really love this project. But the first 3 months were really just trying to get my head around who this company is. What are their expectations of me really? Is they say they want me to be me, but is that truly what they want? And if I put myself out there in me, is it going to conflict with the company or the company values or the company's actual mission? Do I align? Right? So that's a question that I'm often asking myself, and I've been a lot better in this work context about remembering to stay true to myself. I've kind of like, sometimes I'm like, oh, here's what they would expect me to do, so I'll work on this for a little bit, and then I stop and I go, this is not me. This is me trying to be what I think they want me to be. But if I'm going to do this true to my nature and true to who I am, this is what I'm putting out there. And so I kind of realign, right? And what I found by doing that is that I got people on board, like in full force. Like just this last week, I was like, you know what? I'm moving forward anyway. You know, like I was getting some barriers, but at a certain level, I was like, do I need to? I asked the woman who I work with directly. It's like, do I need to let these barriers stop me, or can I just keep moving? She's like, you keep moving. So we kept moving, and now we have the CEO behind us saying, everybody prioritizes this now. This is what we're working on. And we weren't sure that was going to happen, but it did. And I was like, yeah. So that was a very validating thing. But what happens when, you know, it's misaligned? And they're like, no, shut up and move back here. And then I guess for me,
well, that's the thing. Yeah, we're not moving backwards.
Yeah. And
we are, because there's too much in front of us. There are literally millions of dollars in front of us saying you need to prioritize these millions of dollars.
Yeah.
not this petty event that
Yeah.
has, not this little moment from General Hospital that has got everybody excited,
Yep.
right? Because what's happening is bigger
I love that
than
reference.
that this soap opera moment.
Yeah.
And I think the words that I would use, it's not about being better or not about improving. And certainly those words are appropriate, but even to remove the judgment from that, it's like
Yeah.
all of this is a journey of self-discovery.
Right.
All right.
Right.
All of these things are a journey of self-discovery. Your daughter, my daughter, all of these things that we learn from our children as we get older, it's not necessarily about being better, but about being more true, being more of ourselves, learning who we are in those situations, and being true to again, better is a good word, but the purest, I won't say the best part of ourselves, because some people might not like the best part of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It might not align, but it still means that we need to move forward with the purest part of ourselves so that we can get alignment, that we can meet people who are aligned, that we can put ourselves in more favorable situations that welcome who we are. And so with our kids, it's also not about teaching them how to be better, because being better is, from their point of view, it's totally arbitrary and has nothing to do with them,
Yeah.
right? But what is the path to being more of themselves, to being true to themselves? Part of that is being honest and welcoming the honesty. And then it's like, well, if you're smoking pot, that's there to fill some void. It's there to temper something that doesn't necessarily feel as good. And frankly, a day at school, in a modern day school,
Right. It's gotta suck.
with underpaid teachers, and just the anti-intellectualism in general that's going on in the United States
Yeah.
really kind of ruins school in a lot of ways.
That's why I feel, you know,
And
I'd love to pull her out of school. So my oldest one withdrew from public school and does an online school, and she did that before the pandemic.
yeah,
And with this one, I kind of want to pull her out and just design our own curriculum, but she really loves her friends and the social aspects of school.
sure.
I'm like, we can get
Well,
those in other ways. There are other ways to
Well,
that.
but you can bring her, maybe bring her friends into the
Yeah.
whatever extracurricular stuff you might have for
Yeah.
her, or get her into things that her friends might also get her into good things that her friends might also be interested in.
Yeah.
But again, it's the and with my daughter, she, from Z's age to, let's say, till maybe she was 19 years old or 18 years old, she did just about everything to subvert her success.
Yeah.
Just just lying,
Mhm.
omission,
Yeah.
not
Omission's a big one.
omission.
I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you this piece. Yeah. It's like,
Right. And then when the omission is discovered, then there was lying.
yeah.
And then there's shock that there was actually a consequence for lying. But the thing is there's a point where she figured it out, where she became self-motivated. I don't know
Yeah.
how it happened. It was some kind of miracle. She had a realization that she wanted to get out of the situation she was in. She saw something that she really liked and that she could work toward, that was realistic. She got a scholarship. She worked a job, had a scholarship, and she was at her program from 7 in the morning till 6 in the evening.
Then you're too busy to get in trouble, right? Like,
Yeah, well, she was well beyond getting into trouble, and I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I don't know about, but
sure.
and she's tried all kinds of drugs, but I didn't worry about her. I knew she was smart enough, right? I
Yeah.
didn't worry about, and that's the other thing about when we say something like, I give you a phone in case something bad happens. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on that relationship with the phone, because we went to school and we didn't have phones.
No phone. I didn't have a phone
and
until,
and there was plenty of, I mean, come on, there was plenty of potential for bad stuff to
oh,
happen,
always, right?
especially with, especially with half of the guys on the football team out behind the school shooting crows with the rifles that were in the back of their pickup trucks.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my brother's school friends shot himself through the leg and ruined a promising baseball career, just because, everybody had guns, everybody was hunting, everybody was goofing around, blowing stuff up with black powder. There was all kinds of, but so there was plenty of dangerous stuff, but also there is that trust, like the psychology of trust is also conveyed in the language of, like, if the reason, if the overt reason that's being stated is that you have a phone because it's necessary for your safety, because one, something bad might happen to you, or two, you might do something stupid.
It's more that
That's
you might need help. And I want you to,
right,
yeah,
but you
but yeah.
might need help. But the thing is if you are, if we, and I'm just getting into the potential belief systems or frameworks that could be around saying things like that. If we believe in our kids, it's like they and their own ability to navigate, right? Because the phone in some way is just another, it's a two-way portal. It's one, it's a kind of a nanny mechanism, and two, it's a portal into the illusory world, the illusory future world that of expectation that they're headed into, right? So it's one way, it's kind of a, and so those two things are pushing and pulling. That phone is pushing and pulling, and I'm just talking about all the metaphors that go with the language and the
Right, right.
privilege of a kid having a phone. One, it's, if I want, I can track your every move.
Sure. It's a tether
Right.
or a leash in a lot of
But
ways, for sure.
but also it's a vacuum and a suction to Instagram and all of that other stuff. And that's just a difference in the times. But so how, the question then is how do we change the language or the feeling about the privilege of the phone and the world that you live in? And how do we as adults extend that trust back to them? Like, how do we change our thinking about our kids? One thing that I was lucky is that I recognized early on that my daughter had really good bullshit radar, like really good radar.
Yeah.
And I was able to encourage it from a very young age. Like, we were walking hand in hand at a music festival at Bumbershoot here, which is tens of thousands of people, and everybody's drunk and running around, and it's summer, and we're hand in hand, and we're just walking at Seattle Center under the, near the Space Needle. And there's a bunch of venues that we're going past and food stands, and there's a fountain. And all of a sudden I feel my daughter's hand tug on me and pull me in another direction. And then I look, and like 30 yards away, there's like a guy with his shirt off standing on some stone feature next to a fountain, and he's doing really goofy shit, and he's yelling and screaming. I didn't notice him at all, But my daughter saw him from really far away and felt the energy and just pulled me in another direction. Like, I don't want to go over there. I don't want to go in that direction.
Mm,
And that really bolstered my trust in her.
yeah.
uh, I really, I really knew that I could trust her to see things. Maybe even more. I still trust that. Maybe even more than she trusts it now as an adult.
I do feel like that with Sophia a
Yeah,
lot, very much.
yeah, yeah. And so that was, I guess, lucky for both of us. And so how do we find those things to create a world where they also believe that they are trusted, right? Like that like, here's a framework to show you how to make good decisions. Here's friends that or here are friends that I think are cool and good,
Right.
or here are people, here are adults that maybe you could spend some time with who love you, who don't have any
I think,
expectations, so that you're free, so that as a child you're free to dream about, well, what would it be like to be that person, or to have
yeah,
this job, or to be in this artistic situation. And so where are those tricks that don't,
I
so one
think
is,
that's a hard one for me because I am
yeah,
such an introverted person. I don't hang out with a lot of people, but we do have some people in our lives. Like, I feel like my sister, I feel like Ken's sister is a great example,
yeah,
but she also lives in Chicago. We live in Vegas. So being around her is a heck of a lot harder.
yeah,
And that's one of the and we like, one of the challenges I think of now is like, if you grow up in the suburbs, like we're in the suburbs of, we live in these cookie cutter communities. Everybody stays in their house. We're in these little containers. And, like going out to play is a different situation. When we went out to play, we had miles of desert in every direction. It was go out and play. And our parents worried, but not like you might get hit by a car or you might be abducted, like maybe, but less. I don't know. I just feel like we have those worries. But yeah, like the examples, I think is a great. That's one thing that has worked well for. Also a challenge for me because I don't get out much. And so I have a very
mm,
extroverted personality child in a household with extreme introverts, right? I mean,
yeah,
me, Ken, and Soph are all extremely introverted. And then Zia's dad is also on the very extreme side of introvert. Um,
yeah,
and so she's surrounded by people that she can't relate to in a lot of ways. She needs to be engaged in social
yeah,
stuff, and it's very hard for me. I mean, that piece is very hard for me, and I've tried. I hired an assistant for specifically to kind of hang out with Zia because she was an extroverted person, who helped me a lot, and I think she was good in a lot of ways. But then, yeah, then there were like things where it was like conspiring against me, and I was like, that's not the goal. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to team up against me. Let's try to collaborate here.
yeah. And
So
I'm paying, and I'm for one of you. Well,
yeah, I'm
I'm
paying
feeding
you.
one of you, and you're paying the other one of you.
Exactly. So conspiring against me is really not the goal here, but yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah,
that's a challenge that I face, and I'm not saying I'm not saying, oh well, I can't, because it's not that. It's that this is a real challenge that I've faced in my own, trying to navigate this situation with Z in particular. It's, I know that there are things that she needs that I'm not giving her, which sucks as a parent because you want to do your best. You want to be a great parent, and I'm not a terrible parent, but I know there are things that she needs that I'm not excelling
well,
at, if that makes sense.
well, again, we are back to my original premise is we don't have a system
Yeah.
anymore to welcome
We
people into the
don't.
tribe. And the thing is we can't be, and we know this in marriage, we know this in child rearing, that we can't be everything for someone else. That's
Right.
impossible. But we do need, especially for young people, we need a path to show them how they can be everything for themselves. They
Yeah.
need to be able to put into their imagination possibilities that fit who they are.
Yeah.
And I am not my daughter. You are not
Exactly.
your children, right? And so they need examples that seem realistic, and they need and right it we know it takes a tribe to raise a child, right? In the Aboriginal societies where there's a high level of satisfaction and self-esteem, there are numerous aunties who are taking care of children. There are
Mm-hmm.
uncles who are managing rituals. There are elders who hold, who hold space for, right. There's a whole pathway to becoming an old person, a very strong framework in tribal society that gives people confidence, gives young people confidence that maybe there's a way, at least if the tribe is diverse enough, right? And now, um, but in our society is seemingly less tolerant in a number of ways, and doesn't have these, right? Especially, I mean, imagine being gay or in growing up in a very conservative community,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I have friends who were in that I had in college who were closeted all the way up through most of their professional careers.
Yeah.
And
I,
they
yeah.
were working in what I thought were liberal industries, one in the outdoor industry, and he kept that secret from every other executive in this $2 billion corporation.
Man. Yeah. And that's not
Uh,
uncommon,
still,
right?
right.
Still.
And
Yeah.
so where is my tribe, first of all, and then where are the frameworks as how do I become a revered old person in my tribe? Where's a path that supports me in being myself as I get older? And we don't have that. We don't have, like, in in some European countries. In Germany, you have lots of different schools, trade schools, apprentice programs.
Yeah.
Uh, and even then, that isn't always enough for the most creative and the most, let's say, unique people. Even that isn't enough. It's too constraining.
Yeah.
So then I think it comes down to hoping that they discover something, that their world is rich enough that they discover something, because I didn't have that power to expose my daughter to all those things. She discovered some of those things by herself.
Yeah.
I didn't say, "Hey, how about this?" or "How about that?" She
And that's,
discovered it,
yeah,
and
that's,
then was encouraged to go for it and celebrated. But I didn't make that discovery for her. I didn't create that path for her. I just bolstered her
yeah.
trust that she could, that she was making good decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, yeah, it's there's a lot there when it comes to the parenting piece. And I think that's such a great point about like how the tribal structure of welcoming into adulthood, and it just doesn't exist anymore. And it's interesting that it doesn't. It is, what an amazing foundation that must have been.
Well, the good thing with my see, and this is the difference between my daughter and Z, and is or Kate. Well, not the difference, but the similarity is that Kate is also very gregarious, and I would take her to all the parties and
Yeah.
events when from the time she was like from the
I
time she
think
was
that's good for kids. And yeah,
ambulatory. She was running around at parties at the
yeah,
feet of adults. By the time she was 10, she was like learning how to do mix up martinis and make drinks for the adults. She wasn't drinking, but
hmm,
she loved learning how to operate the shaker and
yeah.
strain the right.
I
And
think that's good though. Like, I mean,
she became a minor celebrity in
yeah.
and amongst the adults.
And that's something that, yeah, neither of mine have ever had and probably never will get because I am not that person. I don't go to things. I don't enjoy going to things
Yeah.
usually. It's like given the option, it's like, I mean, even remember early on in our things, I was like, I got invited to a birthday party and this is something I would normally say no to. And I said yes. And I had a great time. It was a wonderful experience. Um, and I've just said yes to two other things just recently because I realized that I had gone back and forth. That's relative, but like I had defaulted, I think, out of yeah, I don't usually enjoy these things. And it's not even that I don't usually enjoy them. I don't enjoy the idea of them, I think is more, it's like if you're gonna ask me which would you prefer to go out and do a thing or to stay home and do a thing, I'm gonna pick stay home every time. I love being home. I love being home. It's like
Mm.
it's great. And if I want to go out and do a thing, I do, but it's not usually with numbers of people. It's usually with Ken or my kids or somebody's in
Well,
town that I enjoy seeing or whatever.
Well, when I would suggest, because you have an expert, when you go to a party, that you take your daughter and she will be your interpreter to the
Yeah.
extroverted world.
Yeah, really. Oh
And
my gosh.
you can just sit back and post up in a comfy chair
Yeah.
next to a coffee table or something,
Yeah.
and then watch your daughter do her thing.
Yeah. And
And
that's
she can be your interpreter or your docent
that's
to
something
for
that I
navigating the social event.
that's something that I've started doing a little more of is because we have the ability to work from anywhere and we're not necessarily quarantined anymore, like we're not being asked to stay at home and not go anywhere. Is just trying to let them, like we've done, the skating rink is a great one. She loves to
Yeah.
skate. And so we'll go to the skating rink and I tell her, like, let your friends know we're going to be there from 11 to 2 and they're welcome to join us. I'm going to be sitting at a table with my computer and a pizza
Yes. Yes.
and writing and just doing my thing while she can go be social. And we've done that quite a bit. And then there's like a Dave and Buster's, which the kids love because there's all these games and they can, same thing. I'm like, I'm going to dock here, work on what I want to work on, but I'll be here. You can come get food and drinks and all of that stuff, but go play. Like, so
Yeah.
Dave and Buster's is such a funny thing. It's like grown up Chuck E. Cheese. But yeah, but they have lots of games and things and food and I can just sit there for a few hours and be in my own world while the kids can bring friends or invite friends to come and go as they please. And there's not a lot of social obligation for me. I can stay in my little world.
Mhm.
And so we've been doing that kind of thing a lot more lately to get out of the house because it's got to be um, hard as a kid to be confined to your house all the time.
Oh no, terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We were never allowed to even have anyone over at our house.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is they're allowed to have people over there, but there's always that like, who is it? And like they have friends that they've had for like Gigi, Zia's friend Gigi, we've had since
Yeah.
they were two. They've been friends since they were two. But she's in the dance program, and so she's often not available anymore. And
Mm.
so yeah, like I think we're okay with people being over. But yeah, it's one of those things too. Like I have like kind of like this much capacity for it. Like I'm like, you can have people over and these are the times. And then we've got stuff to do, or we've got other thing, I need a break from there. Yeah. Anyway, but I am trying to do more of that sort of thing where we get out and then you just let your friends know we're going to be here from this time to this time. If they want to come join, they're welcome. I'm happy to buy food and even like little tokens for the whatever, pay for their skates, whatever it is. I'm happy to do that. If they can get a ride here and a pickup, I'm even happy to drive people home if I have space in the car, or pick up if needed. But yeah, trying to do more of that stuff and yeah, fill those spaces in that way.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily what you do, but it's how you feel
Yeah, and I
about your
do.
kid that makes the biggest impact.
And it's like there's so much love. Like I love my kids so much. As a parent, most parents do. I will generously say. But parents who are trying, they definitely love their kids, right? Like, yeah,
Sure.
it's
I mean, as much as we can love and accept ourselves is as much as we can love and accept our kids.
yeah.
Ultimately, that's it. That's just where it begins and ends. Is as much as I accept myself and grant amnesty to myself for all of my trespasses. And as much as I can love myself and feel good about the world I'm living in is as much energy as I have to give and attention as I have to give others around me. And that, that includes my kid.
Yeah.
Who I was reminded sent me a photo from her pimpin' Airbnb in San Francisco.
Hey.
So she was flexing on me, I think, because she's working in San Francisco right now, and she has an awesome view. And
that's
so
really cool.
I guess I got to call her up and give her congratulations.
You definitely do. That's a fun thing. That's I have to. Last year I tried to make a point of just get like we did a trip to Monterey, California. And
I love Monterey.
Too. I love it there. And so just the girls and I did a road trip out and back across 3 days, and it was super fun. We had a great time. We sang in the car, and but like the road trip was as much of the trip. And then a few months later we did Zion, and then we did what did we do? Hawaii. We stayed at a architectural landmark in Hawaii.
I remember. You broadcasted. Right. We recorded from Hawaii.
So I was like, would you guys like to do anything like that again? And it warmed my heart that Zia said, that experience in the Onion House was one of my favorite. She said, because it was just like quiet and relaxing. And she's like, because my vacation, we didn't do a lot of touristy stuff, right? It was like, we went and we did a little bit, but like we had people who were like, you're not scuba diving, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And I was like, that wasn't what it was about for us. It wasn't about doing everything. It was about relaxing. It was about being in a beautiful space and a beautiful environment and just breathing and
relieving ourselves of expectation.
Exactly. And I believe that they felt that too. I mean, Z very openly expressed that. She's like, it was so relaxing and so nice, and I would love to do that again, even in the same place. I was like, ooh, that's great.
I've probably told this story, but I remember a moment when my daughter was 13 and she had a cell phone by then, a flip phone, right? So that her mom could monitor her, and it really was a leash, right? Like you had to call and.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right, no, but there was there was a certain element of latchkey kid, and fear, and so, but she was with me for the weekend, and I signed her up for this leadership camp led by an institute called the Pacific Institute, which was run by a guy named Tom Shampoo, Champaux.
What a great name.
Yeah, cool name. And so this is one of these institutes that's been around since the 80s, Human Potential. And so they have this program for kids, a leadership program for
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
All right, how to be a leader, how to express yourself, and it was led by an ex Seahawks football player who was,
Very
you know,
cool.
kind of a minor celebrity in the Northwest. But the thing is it was a day with a completely different agenda. I just drove her out there. I dropped her off. I knew she was in good hands.
Yeah.
And she didn't have to call her mom because she was with me. And I said, um, when I'll just come pick you up when you're done. I'll just come pick you up at prearranged time. I don't know that I called her or anything.
Yeah.
I just drove to where and this is in West Seattle, so it's by the beach, and there's this park with nice little rolling grass, little hillocks there. And I pull up, and she's just laying in the grass, arms akimbo, looking in the sky. And I go, Kate, how's it going? Oh, Dad, it's so great. I feel
Oh.
so free.
Oh.
I don't need to call mom. I don't need to be anywhere. I just feel so free. Because she
Yeah.
had a day was nothing but somebody else filling her with all kinds of positive strategies and meeting a bunch of new people with different ideas and completely removing herself from the pressured world of having to answer to her mom or having to be on a schedule with me.
Mhm.
And then but the 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 picture of her just laying there with her arms spread out and just facing the sky in the grass, and she may have even had her phone in her hand, but
Yeah.
just because you had to hold on to it,
Yeah. Well, and
you had to
that's
have it, you had to have it with
yeah.
you. But she's just like, Dad, I feel so free.
I love
And
that.
she really understood, like the way she said it was like a really pure understanding of freedom, like freedom to be yourself, freedom to not be on have
Just
any
exist
expectation. She
and
got it in that
absorb everything around you that is beautiful. And
in that moment.
yeah.
And so I wish that moment over and over for all kinds of kids and myself even,
Yeah.
right? Like all the expectations, all the things that we feel we have to do. But when we are that free, we really are the most use and have the ability to experience the most joy with anyone who's around us. Like at that moment, like my daughter was totally available to the world to
I love that.
be herself, right? Like to be the purest expression of herself in that moment. Totally unencumbered. She was totally unconstrained in that moment, right?
I love it.
Just free,
That's
right? And
it.
that right and
That
but that's what reminds me of, you know, or that's what you reminded me of when you told me about that vacation going
yeah.
to that place, is at that moment you and Zia and Soph were completely unencumbered,
Yeah.
separated from the material world that had expectation.
Yeah. And it was funny because I remember like leading into it, I had somebody ask me if I could be on a keynote panel or something like that on Tuesday. And initially I had said yes, and then I thought about it and I was like, I don't actually want to do this. So
Yeah.
I quickly wrote back and said, you know what? I don't think the Wi-Fi is going to be strong enough at this at where I'm going, because it did say it was rustic or whatever, and I just thought, you know what? Like I'd rather like I let them know immediately right away. I gave them 3 names of other people I think would make a great replacement, and just I retracted that within a couple of days of initially I'd said yes, and I was like, I don't want this obligation while I'm there in that space. Unconstrained was different because it was this, you know, it was
Mhm.
something welcome and
Well,
enjoyable.
again, well, you were free to choose.
And I think that was it. I didn't have to check email. I didn't have to do anything for anyone, just be there and be me. And, you know, like I think, you know, we talk often in our Unconstrained series about finding those moments of joy, finding joy, and the moments where you feel exactly how you want to feel and making more of them. And, you know, extending the space between when they happen and when they're not happening. And that was such a long run of that feeling for me, which was great. And I do find that I'm able to, because I've identified what it feels like and what it looks like in several different forms. It's not always going to Hawaii in a, you know, a beautiful Airbnb, but like it might be sometimes, and it might be sitting on my couch at home. You know, but because I've identified that feeling and I know what it feels like, I feel like it becomes easier to create it more and more.
Yeah. I mean, I had a little bit of that this morning where I just woke up and I'm just turned the
Yes.
music on, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's 8 or 8:30, and I don't know how long I've been listening to music. I just know that at some point that the sky got light
Yeah.
and that the day was beginning, but I wasn't paying attention to anything, and I was really enjoying the trip of listening to the music, because especially this kind of music that I, when I was a kid or enjoyed in the 70s with my friends, um I can also, we were listening to it on bad stereos, on
Yeah.
scratchy records, and now I have these high resolution, full, uncompressed streaming.
Yeah.
And I listen to it, I'm going, wow, that organ is just incredible. Those guitar solos in there, and his, the voice, just
Yeah.
hearing the purity and the imperfections in the voices and the harmonies. And it's a completely new experience, yet it's grounded in the joy that I had when I first heard it.
I love
And
I
so,
love that.
yeah, and that's, and people don't necessarily do that anymore. This listening to an album from beginning to end, or listening to a, a mixtape, and it's usually the music is on in the background. The music is kind of a balm or a
Right.
medication in a way, but active listening and taking the time trip, doing the time travel, and then coming into the future, taking the time travel, like, wow, I remember when my friend Howie's band played this at our ski, this
Yeah.
Molly Hat. I remember when they played this Molly Hatchet tune at a school assembly, and I thought I had never even heard of Molly Hatchet until these guys played this. And then I was like, and they were so good. And then this Molly Hatchet song is really good. And now here, whatever, 45 years into the future, it's still really good. And there's so much more to it.
That's
Right. And
the music memory. I find I did actually a writing series on music memories one year.
mhm,
It's been a while, but like how it's like a time travel portal
it is
almost.
time travel. Yes, it is.
And so my kids play with School of Rock now, and we actually have a show tomorrow and a show next Sunday, each kid respectively, Zia then Soph. And but they play a lot of stuff, and I don't know, we were driving in the car on our way to School of Rock, and it was a Metallica song came on. It was an older one. They like often they'll play stuff like the Black Album or whatever, but it was a really, really old one, like Ride the Lightning, like older Metallica song. And it it was one of those, like, I just transported back in time to my brother. The first time I heard Metallica was in my brother's bedroom. He'd just gotten the cassette tape, and he was like, come listen to this with me. You have to hear this band. And so, like, I'm laying on the floor. I was in probably third or fourth grade too. Like, I mean, I'm laying on the floor. My brother, like, he's got his little stereo sitting right in front of us. He puts the tape in and he unfolds the album art, right? Like from the cassette, you
Yeah.
can like unfold it.
The liner
Liner
notes and the,
notes, exactly. And like, he really taught me to appreciate that, like that experience. And that was something I did all the way up until, I mean, even in this home when I had my CD player, but like going through that and really listen, like when we go through the songs and he'd be like, oh, did you hear that? And he'd rewind it and play it again. And then we do it again and again. He's like, listen to that, listen to that. Like, you know, it's just,
yeah.
I remember hearing like Ozzy, that was another one, Ozzy Osbourne, like Flying High Again song, you know, just in the same way. Like you unfold the liner notes and you're listening and the tape player is right there in front of you, you know, and we were kids, we had the tape player like this big, right?
Yeah.
And man, just like that experience is still with me. I still, like, when I hear those songs, I remember my brother's excitement for like, wait, listen to this variation at the end. Like he says this every time through the song, but at the very end, he changes the word, you know, and I'm just like, every time that I
Yeah.
hear it and I'm like, yeah, or the guitar, you know, varied just slightly. And his ability to hear that stuff was always amazing to me. But like, that's what so I shared that story with my kids too. I'm like, oh, this is Metallica. This is how we used to listen to music. You know, I get so excited about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
Yeah.
such an experience, an immersive feeling.
Yeah. I mean, we would sit in the middle of the room. You'd put on
Mhm.
Dark Side of the Moon. You'd put on, right?
See,
You'd
and I
turn up.
never did that one, but I know I know what you're
Right.
talking about. Yeah.
No, well, I'm just from an earlier generation,
Yeah.
so we were listening to a different set of bands,
Well,
but
that's what my
the
kids are listening
experience
to
was,
now.
yeah. I mean, if we would do this over and over. If you listen to the Rolling Stones' "Gimme Shelter,"
Yeah.
you know there's a refrain where there's a woman singing in the background.
Yeah.
Gimme shelter refrain. She's
Okay.
singing that in the background in a very high voice, and she goes through it this three times, and on the third time, you can hear her voice crack,
Oh, that's great.
and then you hear in the background in the studio somebody goes woo, just
I
very
love
faint,
those. Yeah.
but you can hear it in the background. When her voice cracks, somebody goes woo in the studio, and they
That's
just
amazing.
left it in the album. And
Yeah.
we would sit and listen to that over and over. You just put the
Yeah. That's
needle
so
back,
funny.
listen to it
Yeah.
over and over and over, because it was just such a pure moment in the studio. And I'm gonna see if I'll have to listen to I'll have to listen to an Apple Music version if I can find that version,
Yeah.
because
That's the tricky
it's
part.
really remarkable, because a lot of these things have been remastered and all of that stuff has
Exactly.
been taken out.
My cousin Marie and I we had a 45. This is so funny. Like our parents always gave us like old records or whatever of theirs to listen to. Similar experience though. Marie and I were listening to the song Ruby by Kenny Rogers on a
Mhm.
45. And she had noticed there was like a honking sound at the end, and it was like at the very end the music does this repetitious sort of dun, 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 and then there was like a honk, and we replayed it over and over and over and just laughed. Like we laughed every time that honk sound was made. And I've gone back to try to find it and I can never find it, but it was on that 45. It was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So funny. But yeah, like I think it's been cleaned up, it's been eradicated from the music archives. But it was so funny. We laugh and replay it and laugh and replay it. That's
we
hysterical.
would do the same thing with the Rolling Stones
Yeah,
song "Gimme Shelter"
that's
because
amazing. I love stuff
that
like this, though. This is those moments of just immersion, right? You're immersed in the joy of what you're hearing, what you're feeling.
the discovering something and being transported, and that's priceless, but that's an important navigation mechanism. And somehow we need to bolster that
And apply
in our
it, right?
kids. Yeah, and
Yeah,
apply it.
and apply it
Yeah.
to these situations like we were talking about in the beginning. It's like we move forward with this. This is like the being that we want to have. And so
Yeah.
even
This
though
is
these
well,
experiences, yeah.
yeah. And so it's like, this is the way I want to feel in my
Mm-hmm.
business. This is
Yes,
the way I want to feel in my community. This is the way I want to feel in my circle of friends and family. And this is the way I want to feel on my own. All right.
exactly.
So in every dimension of my life, public and private, I want to have the freedom to feel this way. I want to be free.
Yeah.
I want to be able to access that feeling of laying on the grassy knoll and staring into the sky and going, I feel free.
This. Yeah, this. Oh,
This.
Stefan. I think we did it.
Yeah.
Oh, this was great. What a journey we've been on today.
Yeah. Eso. Eso.
This is exactly it. Oh man. Well,
What
our
do we even call?
unconstrained.
What do we even call this episode?
That's what I want to call this episode. This. I'm gonna write
This.
that down because that's what it feels like. This with
This.
all capital letters. This unconstrained. I'm writing it down.
All right.
And
All right. Well,
yeah, I'm gonna stay seated until I get this downloaded, and then I'll upload it. So I'll do that so I don't forget because we're
all right.
recording a little later in the week than
Yeah.
normal. Thank you for
For
accommodating,
those,
by the way.
for sure. For those of you listening, this episode was recorded on a Saturday morning.
Join us again. We'll be
and
back.
and if you're interested, I will put the link to my Time Loves a Hero Southern Rock
Definitely
playlist,
do that. Definitely do that.
so that you can all enjoy the band and Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers and ZZ Top and Molly Hatchet and who else? Little Feat.
All right.
One of my favorites.
Maybe you listening to those songs will be transported back in time. Or you'll create new experiences.
Back to the 70s.
To feel the bliss of the moment, the experience of listening to something that makes you just feel free.
No, and what I will say is that I wasn't those weren't the albums I bought in the 70s.
Right.
That was that was stuff that some of my musician friends were listening to, and some of my musician friends were playing because we were in a rural community and people were listening to Leonard Skinner and stuff like that. But the musicianship is incredible, and I've done a playlist of stuff that I was listening to in the 70s and on AM radio, because when I grew up, we didn't even really have cassettes, weren't that big yet. It took until late in the 70s before any of us had access to a Sony Walkman or
that's
right. And so
45s and portable 8-track.
Yeah.
In my early years.
we definitely had 8-track. I remember us driving up skiing with a Kiss 8-track tape
nice.
in the deck. But maybe I'll share the other. I have a few songs on another 70s playlist that are more, they are AM, they're the AM radio hits.
Nice, nice. I love that stuff too.
And what's wild is when at least when I hear them now in high fidelity, they're incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
But also because they were recorded for AM radio, they're really clear and easy to listen to because your song had to survive an AM radio broadcast. You couldn't
Interesting.
do a super intricate, highly orchestrated song. It had to have really clear lyrics. It had to have very defined musicianship, and it had to be short with a hook, right? And so that's what worked on AM radio. And then when you got to FM and higher fidelity, you could start listening to things like Steely Dan and, things that were more orchestrated and sophisticated.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that's old people talking about music.
I like it. I like it. Man.
All right. Well, Jamie, we've done it again.
We have indeed. Thank you, Stefan. And
Thank
until
you.
the next one.
Until Thursday.
All right. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.